Welcome back to Homestead Kickoff Week. I'm Amber and I am your host, and we are about to start our first workshop of the week. Today we are talking all about soil health and composting. And so during this workshop, what we're going to dive deep into is what to do if your soil is bad. And what does that even mean? So if you have struggled with tons of pests, very little fruits, puny harvest, just constant weed pressure, chances are your whole solution lies in correcting your soil. With gardening, 99% of our problems can be corrected just by improving our soil. So that's what we're going to talk about during this workshop. Stick around. At the end of the workshop, we'll do a little Q&A and I will answer any questions that you might have. You can also interact as we go. The more we talk and discuss, the more helpful this workshop will be for everyone. So feel free to interact in the comments, make new friends. And so to kick us off, I want to know where you live and what your soil is like. What are you noticing with your soil? And while you're telling me about it, let me tell you about my soil. So I am gardening in North Carolina. We live in the foothills, in a little valley of the foothills, and we are in garden zone 8A. And our soil here in its natural state is like a great big brick of red clay. And then within all of that red clay, there are lots of huge rocks. We have a creek at the edge of our property, and so we have sort of like that creek bank type soil here. Lots of moss, lots of rocks, and not a whole lot of dark, rich soil. So gardening here has been a challenge, and I want to tell you what we've done to fix the situation. So we've been gardening here for 5 years. This is our 5th planting season on this property. And in that amount of time, we have been able to take the soil that is here and we've been able to completely transform it. 5 years. Now, a lot of times you will hear, horticulture experts that will come in and say, it's going to take 15 to 20 years to make a significant difference to the quality of your soil. And I'm here to just tell you that has not been the case on my property. We have made huge changes in under 5 years. And honestly, it's all been about not tilling, which might surprise you. So let's start by just talking about, how do you know if your soil is bad? Like, what are some signs of that? So good, rich, healthy soil is going to look dark. It's going to be loose and crumbly. It's not going to become hydrophobic. If you've ever heard that word, it just means the soil won't hold water. So like if you go to water it and it just puddles on top of the surface and doesn't want to absorb, that's a sign that your soil is hydrophobic or it can't hold water. So what we've got to do is improve the structure of our soil. And we do that first by figuring out what is lacking, and then we can amend it. So the number one thing you can do to improve your soil, you ready for this? You've got to test it. You don't know what you're dealing with until you do a soil test. Now, when I was a brand new gardener, I was asking a friend of mine who had gardened for much longer for some advice, and she told me this. She was like, you need a soil test, Amber. A soil test will tell you exactly what that land needs and what you need to do. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I didn't do one. Our entire first year, I didn't do a soil test. I was so resistant to it. And looking back on it now, I think I was resistant to testing it because I was afraid, number one, of what it would show, that it would be too overwhelming to fix. And number two, like, just the very idea of planting a garden alone seemed like work enough. Like, trying to dive into soil health was super overwhelming to me as a beginner. But by year 2, I realized my friend was right. We were having soil issues. I knew that it shouldn't look red, and ours was very red. And so I did a soil test. Today, I want to show you the soil test that I use. And I actually have it here because we are about to test our soil this week. And so I use this kit. It's from Redmond Agriculture. And the good news is in just like less than an hour after this workshop ends, I'm going to be posting a giveaway, and Redmond is going to send one of you a free soil test kit so you can check your soil at no expense. But this is so simple. It's affordable. It's easy to do. The instructions are on the back. You literally register online for your soil test. You collect the soil in the things that they provide. You mail it back in. They test it. They email you the results, and then you can amend the soil. And it's that simple. So soil testing is huge. And if you don't take away anything else from what I'm going to tell you in this class, I want it to be that it's worth your time to do a soil test. And it isn't scary. It isn't complicated. It takes like less than 10 minutes, and it will completely change everything in your garden. So, big takeaway from today, number one, is test your soil. Now, let's talk about amendments. What do you do when your test comes back and you see you're low on nitrogen, or you're low on phosphorus, or maybe you're depleted in calcium? How do you start adding these things back into the soil? Now, if your immediate thought went to a supplement that you can buy in big box stores, and it starts with an M and it rhymes with Miracle Grow, don't. That's not what I'm talking about. So you don't need synthetic add-ons to improve your soil. You need natural materials if you want an organic gardening. And so one thing is the king of improving bad soil, and that is compost. Compost is king. Just go ahead and type compost is king so I know you're tracking with me. Compost is king. Compost begins to add good structure into the soil. And as time goes by, it begins to break down and influence the soil underneath. So let me tell you how we added compost in the beginning. When we first started our in-ground gardens, we borrowed a tractor. And then we came in with a tiller behind the tractor, and we tilled up all the grass, got rid of it. We thought we got to remove the grass. That's step one. Then we came in and we just started planting, right? Like, it was all turned over. It was sort of red and rocky, but like, there was no grass. We're good. Let's start planting. And can you guess what happened? Have any of you tried that method? If you guessed that we had a whole field of fresh grass and weeds within 8 weeks, you guessed correctly. Because what happened when we tilled up that soil is we brought the seed bank that was deep down in there, and we brought it up to the surface. Inside the earth, this is God's great design to make sure the surface of the earth stays covered and safe and cared for, to protect the soil. Within the surface, deep down, the deeper you go, there's more. There's like over 100 years of seed banks in there. And as the soil erodes, the seeds that come to the surface start to sprout, okay? So what happens when you till is you are bringing all of those seeds that are deep in there, and you're bringing them up to the surface, and then you leave them uncovered, and they get hit with rain and light and warmth, and guess what? They all sprout. And so now you've got a whole garden full of crabgrass, full of weeds, full of everything except for what you want. And you're going to have to fight to even have room in that mess for your crops to grow. And it can be so frustrating and defeating if you're spending your entire gardening season literally just fighting these weeds. And so what do? The weeds get overwhelming. We till it again. We're like, okay, we'll just till it back up, clear them out. And when we do that, we bring another layer of seeds up, and they begin to sprout. You see what's happening here? It becomes this vicious cycle of frustration for a home gardener. So we learned that this was not going to work. If we were going to garden in the soil, not in raised beds, we had to do something completely different. I started to research regenerative agriculture. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's essentially using the land, using your animals, using strategies to primarily work on fixing your soil. It's gardening for the purpose of your soil more so than the purpose of a harvest. But what ends up happening is as you improve your soil, your harvest just quadruple. I mean, it's just like a natural reaction of better soil is better harvest. So year 2, we didn't till. Instead, I bought a truckload, a literal dump truckload of compost, because we were not making enough on our backyard farm for the big garden I wanted to plant. So I ordered a truckload. Number one, that's expensive, okay? Not the greatest solution, but that's what we did. And we spread it all over the top. We covered everything with like 6 to 8 inches, like a good thick layer of compost. And then we planted, okay? Any guesses on what happened? Have you tried this method? Things changed that year. It got a little bit better. We still had weed pressure, but not as much, and the weeds were different. What I noticed was the weeds that were growing were very shallow, and I think it's because, truthfully, the weeds that came up, sorry, my neighbors are being loud. The weeds that came up were in the compost that I had paid a fortune for, that I bought a truckload of. Have you ever gotten a load of grassy compost? That was frustrating. So again, a second summer pulling crabgrass in the garden, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm watching the videos, I'm reading the books, I'm doing the regenerative thing, I'm trying to do this right. So that winter, I put my chickens out in the garden, and I was like, I'm just gonna let them tear it up. Try to like, let them eat all the grass, let them tear out all the weeds, and see where we're at. And hopefully, as they're hanging out there, they're gonna fertilize and improve my soil. So we let the chickens spend some months during the day roaming a section of the garden, and things started to change. Now, with the help of my little chickens, who, by the way, stopped eating so much feed because they were getting free forage off my garden plot, now my chickens started to kind of till for me. Not deeply enough to bring up that seed bank, but just enough to get rid of the weeds that would be growing right in my compost, okay? So this helped, but we still weren't completely there yet. So the next year, I was really worried about getting another load of compost that would be full of grass. My chickens had made a great difference. Things were looking good. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So I spent a second fortune. And this time I bought bags of compost that I felt confident would not have weed seeds, right? And they didn't. My compost was better this time. And here's the bad part though. I had to have a pallet of these bags delivered, and then we had to pick them up one at a time, like 50-pound bags, haul them to the garden, dump them, and repeat like 17,000 times to cover this big garden. And I'm thinking, at this rate, like, it's gonna be December before I even get bean seeds in the ground. This is gonna take forever. We managed to get it done. It definitely set us back with our timeline. It definitely set us back with our budget, but our garden did great. That good compost made a massive difference, and suddenly we weren't having blight on our tomatoes. Suddenly the bean beetles weren't stripping our vines. We were actually harvesting enough beans to like can. And when I say enough to can, I mean like I'm canning enough beans to eat on for a full year for my whole family, and even to share with my friends. And the only change was good compost. So we know that compost is the key, right? Like, I am confident of that. Compost is key. But how do we get compost without spending a fortune? How do we know, number one, what's in it? Like, how can you be sure that if you spend all this money on compost, when it gets to your house and you put it on your garden, like, how do you know that it's not going to be full of crabgrass, or even worse, like some brand new weed that you've never had on your property, and you're introducing it, and then it takes hold and you have a whole new problem? Oh, these are the things that nobody tells you about gardening, and it's frustrating, and it's what hurts your soil and hurts your progress. So the good news is I have a solution for you, and it's a solution that my family is just really starting to fully grasp and figure out. So how can you make your own compost? That's the key. We really know the key is to make it yourself. However, how do you make enough? If you are a backyard farmer like we are, when we're not dealing with like acres and acres and acres of farmland here, backyard garden, how can you make enough? You don't have cows, you don't have tons of manure. So there's a couple options. Option number one is start raising rabbits. Rabbits are the coolest addition to a homestead because you can feed your rabbits with scraps from the garden. And like our rabbits actually live in cabinets in our garden. They are like part of our garden ecosystem, and they have a run where they can get down on the ground and have time on the ground in the garden too. But it keeps them from being in my beds. We don't want them to eat the food. But they live in the garden. And we have 4 rabbits. And what we do is we save their waste, okay? And rabbit manure is completely different than like cow or horse. Those are hot, or even chicken. If you take a bunch of chicken manure, you've got to let that stuff sit for like a year and cool down. If you put it straight on your garden, it is going to burn it up. It's going to be terrible. That won't work. It will be more harm than good. Compost needs time to age, but rabbit manure is the exception to this rule because it's a cold manure. It doesn't have to cool down. It doesn't have to age. And guess what? This is how cool God's design is. Rabbit's manure has the perfect balance of nutrients to be a natural fertilizer, and you can add it straight to your garden. So it is just like basically free fertilizer. My garden feeds the rabbits, my rabbits feed the garden, and the garden feeds me. And that's the cycle that happens in my family. We don't eat our rabbits. I know somebody's going to ask that. We don't do meat rabbits. Our rabbits are pets, and they benefit our garden with compost. So I'm seeing questions about rabbits and wanting to see their housing. That is coming on Livestock Day during Kickoff Week. I'm going to show you our whole rabbit setup, and we're going to talk more about that topic. But I wanted to get it on your mind because there is a whole book about raising rabbits, building a rabbit habitat, helping work with it in your garden. There's a book in the Homestead bundle about that. Just comment Kickoff, and when you get off this call, it will be waiting for you in your DMs, and you can check it out. So rabbits are idea number 1. Idea number 2 might really surprise you because it shocked me. I didn't even know this was a possibility. Worms. Did you know that worms can play a really important role on your homestead? So worm farming is kind of a new phenomenon. People are starting to talk about it more and more. My friend Natalie wrote an incredible book about how to become a worm farmer. It's called I Am a Worm Farmer. It's also in that bundle, so you can comment Kickoff if you want to see that too. But the worm farming is a huge piece of creating compost if you're in a small space. Like even if you're just gardening on a balcony, or even if you're just needing enough compost to fill pots on your porch, like you don't have to go buy compost. Start you a little worm farm. It's surprisingly simple, and it's also very scalable. So like obviously like a teeny tiny little worm farm is not going to produce enough compost for my giant gardens. Like we're gardening in a big area now. It would have for a couple raised beds though when I was starting out, or for a couple of pots. So don't discount the potential of a worm farm. And the cool thing is you can scale it. And this is what our plan is for this year for our compost. In addition to the rabbits, we want to build a giant version of Natalie's worm farm that she offers in the course, that we can have live in the garden next to the rabbits, and then the worms and the rabbits can work together to provide us constant compost all year long, and the chickens can come in the off season and clean up the mess in our garden. And I really think this is going to be the key moving forward. For the past couple of years, the rabbits have made such a huge difference in the quality of our soil, and I think adding on that layer of more worm castings is going to be even better. So, making your own compost is the fastest and easiest way, and definitely the most affordable way to improve your soil. So whether it's that you get a couple of rabbits and have them as pets and use them strategically for your homestead, or maybe it's that you build a worm farm with your kids over the weekend and you let them have little wormies as pets and you learn to take care of them and feed them, both of those solutions are going to give you endless supplies of compost that you never have to pay a dime for again. And I don't know about y'all, but I spend enough money on seeds and canning jars and canning lids and like my freeze dryer, Mylar bags. Like there's a lot of supplies that go into a homestead life. And if I can save that composting money, it drastically cuts down on my expenses through the year. So for me, learning to compost is probably the most valuable skill that I think I could ever learn or teach you about homesteading. And in my humble opinion, the best way to learn those things are with rabbits and worm farming. Now, the good news is both of those resources are available to you this week for Kickoff Week for less than $1 each, which sounds crazy, but it's true. So I'm joining forces with over 70 other homesteaders, and we've all donated our books and courses into one big bundle, and you can grab it for $50. And the total value is like $4,800 and some change. It's a crazy amount of stuff. And then you can go in and download all the ones you want to keep, save them in a folder, print what you want paper copies of, and you are going to be set. There is your blueprint to build your homestead. It's going to cover your chickens, your rabbits. It even covers sheep and ducks and worm farming and soil health, and there's garden planting things in there. And I also have a brand new book in there called Better Together about companion planting. And I'm so excited for y'all to see my new book. It is like all the work of my heart from the wintertime poured into one document. And it's going to tell you exactly how to lay out your garden. I'm seeing a few questions. Let's go ahead and open it up. Let's talk. Drop all of your questions. Composting, gardening, soil testing. I will answer the best I can. And if I can't answer, I will send you to someone who can. So go ahead and start dropping questions. Let's see. Should I add compost to initial soil for a new raised bed? Yes. So if I was building a brand new raised bed or even a brand new in the ground garden space, my first step is I would lay down cardboard. I've got a guest. I would lay down cardboard, and then on top of the cardboard, I would pour my compost. So if you're filling a raised bed, put cardboard in the bottom, wet it down. That cardboard is going to act as a weed barrier temporarily, and then fill your bed up with compost, not topsoil, compost. That is the way to go. Little Tree Cottage said, I ordered my bundle but mistyped my email. What do I do? If you have any issue with a bundle order for any reason at all, we have 24-hour-a-day support for you. All you got to do is email info@impactbundles.com 24/7, and we will help you and we'll get you your bundle. Let's see. Not me texting my husband and telling we need bunnies. Yeah, girl, you need bunnies. They're amazing. I can't wait to show you my rabbit babies this week. They're so sweet. We purchased rabbit manure from someone local, which is another option if you can't or don't want to own. That's so smart. And you know, it's also another income stream. Like if you're a small homestead trying to like hustle up some side cash, people will buy it. And rabbits produce a lot of manure, like probably more than you think. With 4 rabbits, it's more than we'll use on our 3-acre homestead. We have plenty to share with other people too, so that's cool. What composting bags did I buy? I bought Wallace Farms, and we got it at Lowe's. And they had like a sale when we got it where you could get it for, I think it was like $2 or $3 a bag. If you bought over a certain amount, talk to them in there because sometimes they'll give you like a bulk discount. Let's see. Is your book an ebook? Yes. So I've had some questions about that. I wish that we could send you this bundle in hard copies. That would be so cool. But it's 78 different books and courses, and we would have had to price it at like $2,500 to make it hard copies. And the whole point of this is to make the education really, really affordable. So to be able to keep it at $50, it's ebooks, but they are all printable. Some of them are courses, there's video lessons, but my book is 60 pages. It's completely printable, so you can actually have, it comes as a PDF, so you can actually see my suggested garden layouts and the companions and all of that. Can you set up a worm farm in a cold climate? Yes, you definitely can. There are some tricks to that, and Natalie does talk about that. In addition to her book in the bundle, she is doing our second workshop today. Tonight at 8 p.m., she's going to do a class about how to build a worm farm and how to start composting. So you can actually see and watch how she does it. So make sure you tune in. That will be on her page. It's Hey, It's a Good Life at 8 o'clock tonight. Goat droppings. Okay, so I've not used them yet. We're getting our goats this week, y'all. But I have been told that goat droppings work the very same as rabbit. They're a cold manure. Have any of you tried it? I haven't tried it yet, so weigh in if you've tried it. Do you have 2 compost piles? One for new compost and one developed. So we actually have like 4 compost piles that are in different stages. And we just kind of stir them up and keep adding to them. So there are, if you want some ideas, go on Pinterest and look up composting. And there are some really cool ideas for like building a setup with pallets to confine them. There's tons of options for it, but we do have multiple piles, and that seems to work well for us. Let's see. Oh, my kids are watching and they want to know about starting a worm farm for our garden. Can you tell them what to do to start? Yes. Hey guys, I'm glad you're watching with your mom today. So to start a worm farm, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need a big container, and then you're going to need greens and browns. And that might sound kind of confusing, but it really is going to be very simple. So your greens and your browns are going to add the different nutrients, and they're going to be things like leaves and grass clippings and then old food scraps. And as you put all that in, and then you cover it up with some soil, and you add your worms into the bin, the worms start to go in there and they break all that down and they turn it into this beautiful rich soil. And then all of the things that we would normally waste, like grass clippings or like old leaves that fall from the trees in the fall, suddenly they have a purpose, and we can use them and turn them into free compost. So tell your mom to show you the I Am Worm Farmer videos. They're all very kid friendly, and Natalie even has some worm farming things just for kids, like coloring pages. She's got all kinds of resources. So you guys definitely want to watch her workshop. And if it's after your bedtime tonight, kiddos, don't worry. She's going to save it and post it to her page so you can get back to it and learn about worms tomorrow. Let's see. Do you store your rabbit manure somewhere, and do you continually apply it through the season? So when we show you the worms, I'm still on worms. When we show you the rabbit setup, you will see. But basically, the cages are wire on the bottom, and they're elevated off the ground because that helps prevent parasite problems for rabbits. It keeps them healthier. And then when they use the potty, it falls through. And it all collects underneath. And so we put down straw below their cages and let it fall through and collect. And it's sort of like a living compost pile situation. And then you can do a couple of things. You can just spread it out like every few months, like you would apply fertilizer. I tend to add mine twice a year, spring and fall. I'll add a little bit. But my favorite way to use it is to make what Josh calls bunny honey tea. And we have a YouTube video about how to make it, but you take that manure and you put it in a bucket with some water and you let it sit and ferment and get real gross and stinky. And then you use that like a concentrate and you water it down and you pour it on like a liquid fertilizer. That stuff is good. It's like a powerhouse solution. It's even better than just applying the manure by itself. So if you go on YouTube and look up Grace Walk Farm, there's a whole video about how to make bunny honey fertilizer. Do you rotate your garden plants? My hubby thinks we can keep planting tomatoes in the same place. Yes. So if you had asked me this question a year ago, I would have said that you're right and your hubby is wrong, that you don't have to rotate. That was my position up until about a year ago. Because what I was attempting to do is rotate my crops seasonally. So like I planted tomatoes in one spot in the summer, and then in the fall I would come in behind them and plant like a round of bush beans or a round of cabbage or something like that. But it didn't really work the way I hoped, and it didn't catch up to us. I think it helped, but it didn't fully catch up to us until year 4 in the same spot. And in year 4 last summer, our tomatoes struggled with disease for the very first time. So this year we are rotating, and we're actually flipping our gardens. And so later this week, you're going to get a whole tour of my garden. I'm going to give you like a whole tour and let you see the layout. Josh is going to show you how we build our trellises, and you'll see where I'm talking about. But we're flipping it, and we're putting our green beans where the tomatoes usually go, and vice versa. So I'll let you know how that goes. But I think your hubby is right. I think rotating is the better way to go. Is it okay to use dried leaves and compost in a raised bed above the cardboard? Yes. I love adding leaves. I even add like old leaves as mulch in the fall. We'll rake them up and then just throw them on top of our garden beds. They make a great mulch. Can you mix the soil in with the compost if you've already got soil down? Yeah, definitely. But I wouldn't mix it. I would just add a layer of compost on top, almost like you're top dressing it with mulch. Just add the compost. Don't mix it in. The thing with trying to do this like no dig style of gardening is the less you really get in there and disturb it, the better off you are. You really want to let it like get healthy from the top down by just adding layers of good stuff. Have you ever made a lasagna? It's sort of like making a garden lasagna. Like you've got layers, your cardboard, and then your compost, and then your, dried leaves or your wood chips or your straw, whatever you want to use for mulch. And then you're going to come in and fertilize with like your rabbit manure or your worm castings. And then you're going to come in the fall and add some more compost. And then you're going to add it, you just keep going. And over time, these layers build. And suddenly your soil becomes dark and beautiful, deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper down. And as your roots are going deeper and deeper and deeper down, they're getting nutrients, and your plants are strong, and suddenly your harvest gets better. That's the whole concept of no dig. So lots of layers is the key. What do you feed your rabbits? So our rabbits get kind of a mixed diet. They get pellets every day, just so we offer them that, but they prefer to eat fresh. So honestly, most of the fresh stuff I feed them are the weeds that I pull in my garden. As I go around pulling weeds, I carry a 5-gallon bucket, and I just put all the weeds in the 5-gallon bucket, and then I offer them to my rabbits, and they usually will eat it all by the next morning. So yeah. I didn't put anything under my beds, and we had a mole, so I would put something now. So moles are frustrating, and if you find you're having a ton of trouble, you can definitely put hardware cloth like in the bottom, and that can help prevent them from digging up, but your roots can still reach down, if that makes sense. Can you read the bundle books on a Kindle? That's a very good question, and I honestly don't know, but I will find out the answer for that today. Message me, and I will let you know. The way they are going to come to you is as a download list, and then you can download them and save them like to a zip drive, to a Google Drive. I put them all in like a Google Drive folder, and then I'll go through, and like I'm thrifty, y'all. I don't want to print 10,000 pages. That's a lot of ink and paper. So I print the individual pages from each book that I want to keep in a reference binder, and then I get like a big thick 3-ring binder for the bundle, and all my favorite pages go in there. And it's like I keep it in my kitchen as a reference guide. If I have trouble with like a sick rabbit, I'll go to the rabbit book. If I'm having a question, like one in here for sure that I am going to print the whole thing of, there is a book. It's like a handbook to pastured poultry, and it shows you how to process your own poultry. And it is like the most clear, step-by-step simple directions of any book I've ever looked at. So I'm printing that and that's gonna be a whole binder by itself. That one is just, honestly, I would have paid $50 just for that book. So comment Kickoff and go get it. Have I ever used coconut husk versus cardboard in the raised beds? I have not. I have not tried coconut husk. If anybody has, leave a comment and let us know if it worked. Squash in a raised bed or in the ground. It really does well in either one. Squash is not picky at all. But if you can do it, try to like grow it vertically. Even staking your summer squash to get it up off the ground will help a lot with the pest, and your harvest will be better. What are your thoughts on in-garden bed composting? So there's a lot of argument about this kind of thing, but ultimately I think that's pretty much like what I do because I'm adding layers and I'm not mixing it. I'm continually adding good stuff, and it's sort of composting itself down slowly. It's like a living compost system of sorts. But you do need that finished compost as a layer, I think, to feed your soil. It helps so much with the structure. So, yeah. For soil testing, do you gather soil from just one area or multiple areas? So, depends how big your garden is, but I would do multiple areas. And let me just open this up. This is so cool, y'all. So right away, all your directions are right here. As soon as you open it up, they give you the envelope and everything you need to mail it back. No postage necessary. And then you get this. And this is what you're going to do your sample in. And then you get a little scoop here. So each kit comes with like one little sample cup. So if, for instance, like a Homestead this size, I want to test, I'm mostly interested in testing where my tomatoes were last year, where we had some disease problems. And then I always, every year, test the soil in our fruit orchard areas. So I will use multiple of these tests just to cover like each area. Because like fruit orchards sometimes need slightly different things. Like our blueberries, a lot of times we'll add something to acidify the soil a little bit, like a berry tone or something like that. So yeah, one kit per area that you want to test. Okay. Ooh, somebody said the goat manure works really great. Thank you for commenting on that. All right. How do I find this video after you froze on my end and you were answering a question? Oh, I'm so sorry. So I'm going to post this right after we wrap up onto my Instagram page. And I want you guys to know I'm also posting all of these workshops onto YouTube. So you can go and like, I'm saving them all there and all on Instagram so you can get back. And at the end of every day, I'll email out all of the day's replays for any you missed. So all of that will be coming to you if you need email alerts, or if you want to look at the bundle, if you want to grab those books on the worm farms or composting, drop the word Kickoff and I'll send it your way. Everybody wave bye to Pappy. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out. This has been a fun workshop and I feel like we've covered a lot of ground really quickly. But yeah, if you think of more soil questions, feel free to send me a message today, and be watching the workshops to come. Natalie's Worm Workshop tonight at 8. And then I will be live with you one more time today. And honestly, it's probably the one I'm most excited about all day. At 6 p.m., Josh and I are going to be on here live with our friends Zach and Savannah. And Zach and Savannah have a crazy story. We met them through gardening, but we fell in love with them because of cancer. And it sounds crazy, but there is such a story there that you are not going to want to miss. Like, honestly, when Savannah first told me their story, I wasn't sure if I could believe it myself. It's crazy, but it's true. And I've been friends with her for a long time, and I see behind the scenes, and this family has a story that you have got to hear. Life-changing stuff. So tune in at 6. Let me introduce you to Zach and Savannah, and Josh will be back with me. And yeah, it's going to be a fun night. 6 o'clock, Stories of Hope here with me. 8 o'clock, worm farming over at Hey It's a Good Life with Natalie. And watch my page in the next hour because I'm about to post the soil test giveaway. And one of you can grab one of these as a gift from me. All right. Love you guys. We'll see you soon.